Welcome back to the Global Marketing Day. I'm your host from Sydney. My name is Olga. I'm head of global marketing for Semrush. And my team just notified me that we broke the 5,000 viewers mark. Thank you to all of you who has been with us for a few hours or who just joined. So we're live on globalmarketingday.com, and we're also listening to you actively on Twitter and Instagram, and listening to your questions in the thread below the video. So this is our last session from Sydney, and then we'll connect to London, which I'm very excited about, and it's technically advanced. But before that, we have an amazing session. Next up is Neha Bansal, product manager at Google. Neha leads analytics intelligence team at Google, where they focus on using artificial intelligence to convert analytics data in actionable insights. And after her 15-minute presentation, we'll get back to you with a panel discussion with Harry Sanders, which you all know. He's the first host of Global Marketing Day, and also managing director of Studio Hawk, and Dan Petrovich, the data nerd, most famous one in the world of SEO, I guess, and the director of Dejan SEO agency. And with that, let's transition to Neha's presentation. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olga. So as she mentioned, today we will use this next 15 minutes to talk about how Google uses machine learning in Google Analytics. As part of my presentation, I'll cover it in 3 parts. We'll start briefly by talking about the use case. What is the pain point that we are really trying to solve? And then show you some of the interesting features that we have launched as part of Google Analytics to help address the pain point. And finally, I will discuss with you under the hood, what are the technologies that Google Analytics has built and invested in over the last 4 to 5 years to help bring actionable insights to you. All right, so let's get started. So what's the pain point really? As marketers, we all know that we have access to so much data now, and especially in addition to Google Analytics, if you also integrate your data with third-party sources and other Google products, it is a huge, vast ocean of information. On speaking with a lot of our customers, we have heard out and loud that it's really challenging to analyze so much of data at the speed that it's being generated, and B, also feel confident that I have access, or I am looking at all of the possible insights that my data has to offer to me. Given this, this has especially been an issue for medium to smaller organizations who do not have the resources required to invest in building their in-house data science teams who will build massive algorithms for identifying those insights. And therefore, as part of Google Analytics, we understood this challenge and decided to invest in a whole suite of features under the umbrella of analytics intelligence around 4 to 5 years ago. So let me quickly breeze through some of the features that we have launched, and to give you a sense of what are the capabilities we have developed. So in terms of some of the capabilities, first is the automated insights features. Automated insights. So, of course, what we are doing here is, as the name says it, these insights are automated. We look at your data and we identify insights that are relevant for your Google Analytics property without you having to do anything. Secondly, these insights are also personalized. So we use our understanding of what are the top metrics and dimensions that you care about as a user of Google Analytics, and therefore surface only those insights that are relevant for your purpose. And finally, we also ensure that in every insight, we have an action for you at the bottom. So let's say if we give you an insight, which is about identifying outliers, at the bottom, we will tell you that, hey, you can create an audience comprising of that have been identified as an outlier as part of this insight. And then you can export that particular audiences to other AdWord products or third-party tools for further consumption, and thus close your marketing loop. The second very prominent feature is on-demand insights. So as part of on-demand insights, essentially, when few years ago, we heard a lot about how all the Google Analytics is a much user-friendly tool compared to other tools that we have in the market. There's still a lot of ramp-up time that's needed. So as a rising analyst, you have to know about where to find the information you're looking for. What are the right metrics, how to apply the dimension and the date filters, so on and so forth. And that ramp-up time was costing a lot of money to the businesses. So because as we were brainstorming, how could we solve this problem and make it easier to use Google Analytics, we found our answer in search, right? Because we are the best at that. So what we did was we built a search bar within Google Analytics, and all you have to do is ask the question that you want your answer to in simple, natural language. So as shown in this slide, you can simply type revenue last month from outside United States and even add more time period like this week versus last week and hit enter, and we will show you an answer right there and then. This prevents you from having to know a lot. And finally, the third feature is custom insights. So for use cases where we do not exactly understand what are the insights that you and your business really needs, we allow you to also configure your own insights. So you can set up alerts and thresholds saying that, hey, if condition A, B, and C is met, send me an alert on my Google Analytics dashboard as well as over email. Now, the cool thing here is that we also have a condition where you can just select the condition of saying has anomaly, where if there's any anomaly in your data, we will surface that for you. Now, I'll just flip back a few slides to quickly tell you what are all the technologies that support these amazing features that we've built. So the first one is, in order to support automated insights, currently we have built statistical models in the backend. And the two big ones are, one is the Bayes DLM model that helps us identify anomalies over time. What basically Bayes DLM model is, all it does is it uses the historic data for each of your metrics and then uses that data to predict the future performance. The second model that we use is the PCA model, it's Principal Component Analysis. As part of that, we take a dimension. So, for example, let's say country. We will take different countries associated with your property, look at around 7 to 8 metrics, and spread out that dimension in a 7 to 8 dimension of scatter plot, which is huge. So then we use PCA to collapse that 7 to 8 dimension space into a 2 by 2 dimension, and then just see which dimension value is behaving separately or uniquely. So let's say in case of countries, you have a particular country like Australia, which has a very unique behavior compared to the rest of the countries, and then we will call that an outlier and surface it for you. So in order to build these algorithms, it might just sound that, oh, we should be able to do this in-house, right? But you have to realize that really, for a business, you're looking at your own property, which could be a much smaller scale compared to what Google Analytics looks at. So we have millions and millions of properties, and we process more than 9 billion events every day. So at that scale, we need to be able to support large-scale statistical models so that we can generate those insights for you. Now, that brings me to the second point, that in order to be able to support those large-scale models, we needed to make sure that we had in-house production pipelines that would help us scale. And that's where we use TensorFlow Extended. As you're aware, you probably know that TensorFlow is a Google product as well, which has helped revolutionize the implementation of machine learning at much smaller level. So we also use TensorFlow Extended to help us scale our ML pipelines. The third one is the natural language understanding. So for the search feature, as you saw, that as you type a query in the search bar, we invest our resources in parsing that query into a dimension value, metric, and time period. So that's where our natural language understanding comes in, and we build a lot on the technology that search already has. Where machine learning really comes in here is to help us evaluate the precision of the result. So let's take a step back. Let's say you type in a query and we give you an answer immediately, right? But how do we know that how often are we correct about the answer that we gave you? So until when we started this project, we used human raters who took a sample of search queries and then labeled each query as true or false, which basically meant, did we do a great job at giving you the right answer? Now, this was working great when we launched the product early on in just one language. However, when we scaled to 40 plus languages that Google Analytics supports, we realized that, we cannot scale this in terms of the precision ratings. And that's when we tapped into our machine learning resources. So what we did was we built an ML model where we fed in millions of labeled data set, where we labeled correct or incorrect in different languages for each query. And then we used that labeled data set to train an ML model to tell us whether the response we gave was accurate or not. That has been phenomenally successful for us. Our precision of query understanding has gone up from around 60% to more than 98% now. And it has also helped us reduce the cost of manual intervention that we've been doing early on. Finally, on the personalization side, so as you're probably aware that Google Analytics has more than 200 reports with tons of dimensions and metrics. So as we were generating insights, it was important for us to think about what are the insights that you care about. And it's not just you, it's also that your business cares about. This was especially critical given that a person, Joe, could be playing different roles across different businesses. And therefore, it was important for us to understand what was it that Joe really cared about. And in doing that, for doing a good job at that, we decided to invest in a personalization engine, which essentially looks at your behavior on the Google Analytics platform, and then tries to predict that what are the metrics that you personally care about. And then when we show you the next insight, we feed that information into the insight generation engine and use that to give you the right set of insights with the right metrics and dimensions that you love. So that's pretty much on some of the under the hood view of the technologies we are using right now as part of Google Analytics. And I hope this was helpful, and I would love to hear any questions that you have about this.
Thank you so much, Neha, for the presentation. And we do already have one question. It's about how does Google Analytics help in scaling e-commerce websites? Maybe we can rephrase it into how does this algorithm that you built already, do you have any successful cases that you can share? How it has helped specific businesses or e-commerce businesses?
Yes, absolutely. So we recently launched our App plus Web property type in Google Analytics. And let me talk a little bit about that, because that's focusing on the e-commerce use case really well. So what we are doing is, one very important thing is to have the right type of event tagging setup so that you can capture the right type of information. So as part of App Plus Web Properties, we have something called enhanced measurement, where you can simply, with the swipe of a toggle button, you can tell us that it's an e-commerce property, and all of the required events for an e-commerce business will be set up automatically. So things like add to cart or view product list. Early on, you had to write code for doing that, but now you will not have to do that anymore. And with that information, again, that is information something we are aware that helps us know that you're an e-commerce platform, and then we focus on generating insights that are meant for e-commerce products. So for example, we will look at insights very soon, where we will tell you what are the top 2 products that you should bundle together. What's the likelihood of them 2 products being sold together, which is valuable information for e-commerce players.
All right, thank you. Any cases? Well, you obviously both work with e-commerce websites, and then you use Google Analytics, I assume, for them.
Yes.
So, any cases, or how others could use Google Analytics for e-commerce websites?
Well, I had one question specific to things like new products or startup websites that don't have a ton of traffic. So you have sparse data problem, and you mentioned that you're using TensorFlow and large-scale statistical learning. Can you apply what you've learned on a big scale to a tiny little startup website with not much data? Now, is all this insight that you're generating useful and actionable for a website with not much data in its analytics?
I will have to say that if you are a very small company with not much data, it is challenging to identify trends that would apply specifically to you. It's definitely much more difficult. Not just technically, there are also privacy concerns that play in, because if you have very smaller user segments, we cannot recommend audiences for you which are less than X, right?
Yeah.
So that's a challenge that plays into privacy issues as well. So we can definitely show you insights, but they may not be actionable as you would like it to be.
Do you have a number to give us, like 2,000 per month visitors, or is there an arbitrary number you can just sort of? We're not going to hold you accountable to it, but just to give us an idea, 100 minimum, 1,000, 10,000.
Honestly, there is no number as such. It's just the accuracy. So let's say if you're a property which has been active for more than 90 days, then we will be able to generate daily level anomalies for you, because we use 90 days for generating daily level anomalies. But if you want your monthly level anomalies, we need 12 months of data. And since you don't have it, it will just not be generated for you. So depending on the feature, that relevance in terms of amount of data varies.
I remember back in the day, going back to those privacy issues, a lot of people would, with small kind of websites, would tag all the sessions and then know which user did what. And Google's obviously not a big fan of that, and has largely, in part, gotten rid of that.
We spend a lot of resources in just making sure that we're not surfacing information which can identify individual users.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
Marco has a question that kind of ties into what you were asking, Dan. So for B2B, where the numbers of interactions are much a lower number, how to analyze and make it easy to understand? Do you recommend any specific measurements?
It's a tough one, because if you don't have enough data, it's very difficult to find reliable outliers. It's almost impossible, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But what I was speculating is that perhaps Google has the ability to learn from larger models and detect the outlier on a small data set. That would be useful, I think.
Yeah.
But it's probably impossible, is it?
Nothing is impossible. That's something I believe in. But I think the challenge will be, usually when we do benchmarking type of analysis, it's always good to look at comparables. So if we are looking at companies which have large data sets, like large e-commerce companies, then we will compare large e-commerce companies with similar amount of events and then form a model around that. And then when we make models for smaller companies, they all have the same range of, they fall in the same range with respect to number of events. So that is something we try to do consistently. So I wouldn't say that, it would be a great idea to take a big company and put that into a smaller company, because it also depends on where they are in terms of their own business growth, how much they're investing in the growth, stuff like that.
Absolutely, but it would also be really cool, I think, for a lot of small brands to be able to see deviation in bounce rate. Like, you have 1,000 sessions per month. I'm in this industry. industry, my bounce rate is 96%. What does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? What does that mean? And so having a comparable kind of industry metric that you can look at industry by industry, I think a lot of small businesses would really get a lot of
value from.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fully agree.
We have 5 minutes left. There are more questions coming. And you can also answer them, not only direct them to Neha, they're all for the panel, okay? So Christopher is asking, now there's a huge issue with analytics and GDPR. It's not allowed to use it without user consent. That kind of dissolves the metrics. How can we abstract the few data points we get best?
That's a tough one, isn't it?
GDPR. Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to deflect the question like that back to Google. What are you guys doing about GDPR?
There's a question is, if you want the absolute accuracy of your data and want to analyze everything, you still have your server log files with all the data in there, and you don't have to worry about third-party providers such as Google Analytics to deliver the data to you, because everything that lands on your website is in your server log files. So you can take that log file, analyze it offline or in your own software, where you don't have to worry about all these things, and you will see everything happening in there. Doing offline log file analysis is a very old school thing to do, and it's almost impossible to do more modern user tracking and things like that, which is, I think, what the whole point of GDPR was.
Yeah. It's funny how we've gone full circle back to that server log analysis, where big brands affected by things like GDPR will plug in that server log into their own graphing tools and then come back with these analysis, and you just go, man, that's what we were doing before Google happened. Like, it's full circle.
Yeah. One good news I can give is for other privacy stuff like ITP requirements, etc., Google is investing in building in-house models which can help project that if you had this information for longer duration, what would the metrics look like? Okay. So, yeah, that's just a small insight.
Great news.
Interesting.
Jay's asking which of the statistical models or methodologies currently being implemented in the tech would be useful to have a basic top-level knowledge of? So to rephrase the question as I understand it, so Jay would want to know, any popular statistical models that are being implemented.
Sure. So as I talked about a little bit in the presentation, I can talk a little bit about that more. So there are lots of models that you could use depending on how much skill sets do you have in the company in terms of folks who know how to build those models, and B, how much machine power do you have for processing that data. So what we have started with is anomalies and outliers. So we use the base DLM model for identifying anomalies over time, and we are using the PCA model, principal component analysis, for identifying anomalies in a segment at a point of time. Of course, there are lots of other models that are used in other parts of Google Analytics product. So for example, within analysis, we use clustering techniques, which is based on k-means clustering. We use lifetime value prediction, where we use a forecasting model to predict the lifetime value of different users, stuff like that. I think it's an unending list.
So we have a couple of minutes left, and probably something that, so this is a really advanced hardcore session. And so if we go to the more of like a beginner, intermediate, so which of the Google Analytics functionality or maybe reports is often overlooked that you would recommend definitely using, and then you've seen a great impact from?
Yeah, Google will love me for this. Assisted conversions. They're always drumming on about getting people to use assisted conversions, and it's actually for good reason. The assisted conversions is a attribution modeling method that a lot of small businesses don't look at. And it tells you if someone comes from paid to SEO or direct to SEO, and actually models out the journey a lot of people have. And they do that for you for free in your analytics. It's insane, and it's already there for you if you have analytics installed. So, have a look at it and see if you make sure you've got those goals set up, and it's an absolutely awesome thing that a lot of businesses overlook.
Yeah, I think a lot of small businesses in particular, they make the mistake of just crediting everything to the last click, and I think in part it's due to I guess Google Analytics not having an intuitive enough interface or good enough information or straightforward information, which apparently they're solving at the moment, to present that information in normal human language. So let's say the user goes to the attribution modeling section, and then you go, what does this mean? You can do this or that. What's the difference? How do I use this? So I suppose what's happening now internally is they're modifying how that works. So what I'm understanding is you'll be able to type in a query and get that answer more intuitively than what's happening at the moment. So it looks like it's all happening. But I see attribution modeling as something that people completely ignore.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Neha, fire away, any tips that you see that really work for your clients? And
I think, so there are two features I would talk about. One that I built and one that I did not. So I definitely think that the search feature is really cool, especially for beginner users who have not used Google Analytics before. So they could use the search without even knowing anything. They could just come into the search bar in Google Analytics and type whatever they want, and we surface information, including reports, insights, admin search, a lot of things. Especially in App Plus Web, it's a very different and excellent experience. So I would recommend using that. Second is smart audiences. So a lot of effort is spent right now in identifying high-performing audiences, and that workload can be cut down if you try smart audiences. All you do is whenever you create an audience, we make a suggestion that, hey, we think this set of users would be high performing. They're more likely to convert. Their LTV would be higher based on some of those metrics. We create that set of audience for you and surface it as a suggestion. So I think that could also help you save a lot of effort if you just start using smart audiences.
All right. Well, that was an insightful session, very technically advanced. Thank you so much. Neha, thank you for everything that you do in Google to help a lot of people get more insights and analytics.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining the panel. We have a lot of comments from Ghostbusters fans.
Present.
Yeah, so that's a wrap up for the session. Thank you. And I'll see you soon at the backstage. And with that, that was the last session for Sydney. And then after the short video, we'll see our London hosts.